Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial. If you'd like more information about what you heard during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And then while on my website, please click on the podcast page to check out our past shows and also to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. One of the biggest financial challenges out there isn't the stock market or inflation. It's something a lot closer to home, actually saving for retirement. Yes, get on the job of start saving. A 2024 gold banking rate study shared in an article by Investopedia titled 7 Steps to Create a 10 Years from Retirement Plan found that nearly 3 in 10 workers haven't saved a dime for retirement yet. And almost 4 in 10 aren't currently contributing to any kind of retirement fund. That's just scary, those statistics. Now, sure, some people might still have, let's say, a pension to fall back on, but for most people, I would say that safety net just doesn't exist anymore like it did 20, 30 years ago. And that leaves a lot of hardworking people in a tough spot when it's time to step away from the paycheck. But before we get started, let me bring in my co-host who swears they were 25 just 5 years ago and can't believe retirement is suddenly on the radar. Hey, Tony, how we doing, buddy?
Yeah, well, I don't age. I'm not aging, right? I mean,
Not at all.
no, no, no. Yeah, time's flying faster than my vacation days at this point. That's it's buzzing by. But that's why this conversation is so important today,
Hmm.
Albert. I mean,
Yes.
we all have to figure out how to make the most out of the years we've got left before touchdown. How have you been? I know you've been so busy. You've been traveling, you've been
Yes,
working with clients, and this is a busy time of year for financial advisors, isn't it? I
it
mean,
is.
the
It is.
fall into winter, just before we get to the major holidays, it seems like everybody wants to kind of shore up their financial plans, right?
For sure, which is smart to do.
Yeah.
But I've been good. I've been doing, like you said, been very busy traveling. Just got back from my annual guys trip I do every October. But now the fun and game is done over, and it's time to finish out the year here. So, how
Yeah.
about yourself?
Oh, I've been great. Just again, like you, I've been really busy. This seems to be a busy time of year and trying to get everything done before the end of the year, but at least before the holidays and before the
Yes.
end of the year. But, speaking of end of the year and timelines, I like your topic for today. I mean, we've got to make the most of the years we've got left before we begin that new chapter, right?
Yeah, and the good news is it's not too late, folks.
Right.
But you've got to have a strategy that helps you close any of those gaps, make smart use of what you've already built, let's say, and then get across the finish line feeling confident about your income.
Yeah, that's huge. So that's the kind of help everybody could use. That's why you're here, Albert. So where do you
Yes.
want to begin?
All right, so let's go to that Investopedia article I mentioned at the top of the show. It has some more potentially useful insights, data for us. So let's go right into it. The first thing to remember is this 10 years is still enough time to make a real difference. Well, it's never too late to start building a stronger financial foundation, regardless. And if you've got a decade before retirement, that's actually pretty meaningful as a window. With a solid strategy and, let's say, consistent effort, you could still make meaningful progress towards your goals.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. And that's encouraging. I think a lot of people hear, 10 years, maybe they panic. They feel
Yes.
like they've already missed the boat, but there's still time, right? I mean, 10 years, there's time to turn things around if you've got some catching up to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the key is to take an honest look at where you are right now, what you have saved so far, what's your income situation, and then what can you realistically contribute going forward. Now, once you know that, it's about considering smart adjustments like cutting a few expenses, redirecting some dollars towards savings, and then staying consistent with it.
Yeah. Yeah, consistency is key. Working with somebody like yourself is key. So it's basically a mix of awareness and action, right? Getting clear
Yes.
about your current situation and then actually following through with a plan and a strategy.
Yes. Well, you have to understand, life happens, and all of a sudden, before we know it, we're here, and it's 10 years before we feeling like we want to retire. And what the everyone needs to understand is you got to start taking action with the plan. So, taking a
Right.
few deliberate steps now, even if they feel small, may make a world of difference down the road. And the first step is very simple too. It's not always going to be easy, so just know that. But you've got to assess where you are right now. What I tell all my clients and all the people that talk to me, know your numbers now. So that most people don't love, okay, admitting they might be a little behind in the retirement goal, but being honest about your current situation is the only way to create a strategy that truly works. It's like dealing with someone that has an addiction. If they are not honest about their current situation, they're never going to make that improvement for the future.
Right. And that's a tough one because I think a lot of people put it off or avoid it because they don't want to face the numbers. And
Yes.
maybe they just don't know where to start. That's a big problem. So what does that kind of assessment actually look like?
Great question. Great question. Let's start by looking at how much you've already saved in accounts that are meant for retirement, things like IRAs, 401ks, or 403bs. Add those up so you have a clear total. And then if you've got taxable accounts that you plan to use specifically for retirement, then include those too. But leave out any money that's earmarked for, let's say, emergencies or big purchases, upgrades, like let's say, a new car or home project. You want to see what's really in your retirement bucket.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically get everything on the same page, including your real retirement picture, and
Yes.
keep things like emergency funds or vacation savings separate. You got to separate those out. And a good way to do this and have an overall plan and strategy like that is to work with somebody like yourself,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
definitely. And once you know where you stand, you can start identifying what needs to change. And then that's where real progress starts to happen. And then once you figure out where you are right now, the next step is to now identify where your income will actually come from in retirement. For many people, their retirement savings are often, things like IRAs, 401ks, or let's say other investment accounts that will provide the lion's share of their monthly income. But that's not the only place it can come from, Tony.
Right. Well, and that's true. Even though those accounts might do the heavy lifting, a lot of people have other sources of income that they might overlook, correct?
Yes, yes. I mean, Social Security is a big one, and most
Yeah.
people understand, but that is income. Most workers qualify for benefits based on their earnings history, how long they've worked, and the age when they decide to start those benefits. And now, for some people, especially those who haven't been able to save much, Social Security might end up being their main source of retirement income.
Hmm. I think that's a great point. And what about pensions? I mean, I know pensions have kind of gone the way of the pension, as I like to
Hmm.
say, but some people still have them, right?
Yep. And if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, make sure you include that monthly income in your strategy. It's a valuable piece of the puzzle. And if you think you might do some part time work as well after retiring, well, whether it's for fun or extra income, that should be factored in as well.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So that makes sense. It's really about getting a full picture of all the possible income streams, then, right?
Yes, bingo, right there. And here's a quick tip. The government Social Security website has a retirement benefit estimator that's really, really helpful. You and your financial service professional can use it to get a better idea of what your monthly benefit might look like so you can build your strategy around real numbers instead of guesswork. And then
Yeah.
once you've tallied up your income sources, now it's time to take a step back and think about what retirement really means to you because it's not the same for everyone, Tony.
Yeah. No, everybody's situation is different. And for some people, it might be about slowing down,
Yes.
simplifying. For others, it's about finally having time to get out there and do things and see the world, right?
Heck yeah. Your goals shape your financial strategy. Someone who plans to downsize, let's say, to a smaller home and live a quiet, modest lifestyle is going to have very different needs than someone who wants to travel frequently or take up a few big hobbies. That's why it's important to create a monthly budget that estimates your regular retirement expenses like housing, groceries, dining out, and your leisure activities. And then don't forget to include your health related costs because those can add up quickly later in life.
Yeah. And that's one people sometimes underestimate. There's health
Mhm.
insurance, prescriptions, doctor visits, and even long term care coverage if you want that protection.
Oh, yeah, precisely. And those costs can really climb. Think about it. According to the 2024 Fidelity Retiree Healthcare Cost Estimate reference in the article, that
Yeah.
was long, sorry. A typical 65-year-old can expect to spend around $165,000 on healthcare expenses during retirement. Now, it's worth strategizing for that now, while you still have time to adjust and prepare and not realize when you need the help because your health, you don't have it.
Yeah, and think of that, and the figures for couples are more, double that. So it's
Yes.
over $300,000 for couples
Mhm.
over 65 that they'll end up spending on healthcare and retirement, and that's a big number. But it's
Yes.
good. It's a good perspective. It really drives home the importance to know what kind of retirement you want and what it'll take to support it.
Yeah. And once you've defined your goals, the rest of the strategy building process has now direction, and that's a key. And it's not just about saving, this is about saving for something specific.
Yeah. Well, and before we keep going with our conversation today, Albert, I think what I'm hearing you say, the key is going to be working with a trusted financial professional who does this day in and day out and can help you come up with the strategies and plans to make sure you don't make costly mistakes and you get through retirement successfully. You make your money last as long as you do. So, how can
Mhm.
our listeners out there schedule that no charge, no obligation consultation?
Folks, you can just give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. Scheduling a consultation only takes a few minutes, folks, and we're always happy to work around your schedule. Okay. Now,
Yep.
back to the topic we are talking about here.
Yep.
Once you know what kind of retirement you want and what it might cost, the next big question is when you actually want to retire. Someone, let's say, who's 10 years away could be as young as 45 if they've built a solid foundation and are eager to step away early, or they might be 65 or even 70 if they're still playing catch up.
Hmm. That's a big range
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
gave. So I guess the factor is the big one is how long you'll need your savings to last once you stop working or your time horizon, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for many people, retirement could last 30 years or more.
Yeah.
So a retirement strategy isn't just about how much you'll spend. It's about how long you'll need to cover those expenses. So retirement that lasts 3 or 4 decades looks very different from one that's only a half that long. And then while early retirement can sound so appealing to most folks, the key is finding a realistic target that balances what you've saved with how long those savings needs to stretch.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's less about hitting a certain age then and more about hitting a point where your money can actually support the lifestyle that you want, right?
Oh, definitely right. And the best way to set, let's say, a target retirement date is to ask, when will I have enough to live comfortably without running out of money? And when you're making those estimates, it's always smart to be conservative and to assume you'll live longer, spend a little bit more, and earn a little less than the best case scenario.
Okay. And that's good advice. I know part of the equation, though, has to be cleaning up any debt
Ooh.
before you retire, especially high interest debt, right? You've said that before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Eliminating debt, especially credit cards and other high interest balances, it's crucial, Tony. The less you owe heading into retirement, oh my goodness, the more flexibility and financial peace of mind you may have once you get there. And all right, so once you've pulled together, let's just say all your numbers, what income you expect, and what you plan to spend, now it's time to face the most important question of all of it. Do you have enough? And be honest
Yeah.
with yourself.
Yeah, that's the question. Do you have enough? And that's the moment of truth, right? You finally see if what you've built will cover the retirement you want.
Bullseye. Yes. If your assets already meet or exceed what you'll need, great. Now stay consistent, keep contributing, and stick with your strategy. But if you find there's a gap between what you have and what you'll need, that's when it's time, well, to take action.
Okay. But what can people do if they realize they're behind and maybe 10 years doesn't seem like a lot of time to play catch up?
Well, it's true that 10 years can go by fast, but it's still enough time to make meaningful progress. So you may need to increase your savings rate and cut back on some, let's say, non essential spending. But the key is to figure out exactly how much more you need to save and then adjust your contributions, whether that's in your IRA, 401k, or other accounts. And one of the best ways to stay consistent, let's say, is to set up an automatic contributions, whether through your payroll or directly from your bank. That set it and forget it mentality approach helps you stay disciplined.
Yeah. Discipline is the name of the game there, and you've got to consider debt too, right? Because that can really eat away at your savings potential.
hmm You definitely want to tech debt, especially high interest debt, like let's say credit cards. Americans' credit card debt reached about 1.16 trillion in 2024. And the average balance was around $6,700 according to Experian. So those interest rates can be brutal, and paying them off can make a dramatic difference in your monthly budget.
Yeah. Well, that's huge. And I like that you said there's no magic trick here. It's just smart strategizing and staying consistent.
I agree. And as you know, there is no quick fix. But with the right mindset, accountability, and let's just say a clear strategy, you may close the gap. And sometimes that means adjusting expectations or maybe learning to live on a little bit less. But let's put it this way. That's all part of creating a retirement that works for you. And one more thing. I think this close to retirement is not the time to take on extra risk. So I don't want you to all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, I have short time. I should gamble more. High risk investments might make sense earlier in life, like we talk about the rule of 100. But in these final years before retirement, protecting what you've built can be just as important as growing it, Tony.
That's a great point. And it's all about balance and protecting the progress you made.
Yes. And now, as you get closer to retirement, another key piece of the puzzle is to understanding your risk tolerance, or how much market fluctuation can you handle without losing sleep at night.
Yeah, you want the swan plan, the sleep well at night plan, and that's
Heck
another
yeah.
biggie. I know, when people are younger, they can potentially afford to take more risks because they have
hmm
more time to recover from market dips, but that changes the closer you get to retirement, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And then your risk tolerance can naturally shift with age. So as you approach retirement, you may want to consider making your portfolio more conservative, especially if your priority is preserving what you've worked hard to build. Because if a bear market, let's say, hits just a few years before you want to retire, man, it may really throw your timing off. And at this stage, many retirees focus on a mix of high quality, dividend paying stocks and investment grade bonds. That kind of balance may help provide, let's say, a blend of conservative growth, but more importantly, and income.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me because it's all about steady, reliable income versus chasing the big returns all the time then.
Exactly. And then there's a simple guidance a lot of people use: subtract your age. Now, people use 100, but the common now is jumping to 110.
Yeah.
And that gives you a rough idea of how much your portfolio could be in stocks. So, for example, if you're 70, you might target around 40% in stocks, 60% in bonds.
Interesting. It's one of the strategies that people can consider, but again, everybody's situation is different. Maybe you need other types of safe options other than bonds, especially as of late. But what about people who are behind on their savings, though? I can imagine some people might be tempted to take on more risk to try to catch up.
Yeah, that's such a common thought, and it's also one of the most riskiest moves you can make. Sure, taking on extra risk might occasionally pay off, but it often produces mixed results. You could end up investing aggressively at exactly the wrong time and then make the problem worse. And then some additional risk might be appropriate depending on, well, let's say on your comfort level. But the key word is measured. For some, increasing equity exposure might make sense, but big swings can get dangerous fast.
So it's really about balance and not getting
Yes.
too cautious too early, but also not gambling with your nest egg when you're this close to using it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great summary. It's about protecting your future while also still keeping your money working for you, which is the thoughtful middle ground. Now, possibly one of the smartest moves anyone can make, especially when you're within 10 years retirement, is to get professional guidance. Money management isn't a do it yourself project for most people, and that's okay. Consulting a financial service professional, well, that might be one of your wisest steps.
Yeah, because even people who are pretty good with money can miss things when it comes to the uh, all these moving parts you've mentioned: investments, taxes, enhanced planning. Right?
Yes, definitely. And an experienced financial service professional may help make sure your portfolio stays properly balanced for your risk level and goals. And then, depending on your situation, they can also provide insights into bigger picture topics like enhanced planning, legacy strategies, or income distributions once you're actually in retirement.
Yeah. And more peace of mind is valuable. I
Mhm.
think a lot of our listeners, though, are wondering about the big question. And you see articles on this all the time throwing out one number.
Mhm.
And how much money do I actually need to retire? That's a
You,
lot of people's
you,
question.
Tony, I get that question constantly. How much do I need? I read just
Yeah.
like you're saying. And that's why that's the $1 million question, so to speak, literally though. The truth is everyone's numbers are going to be different because it
Yep.
depends on your goals, your lifestyles, and your specific needs. But there is a common strategy that may help you get, let's say, a ballpark estimate. And what that is basically is that many financial service professionals suggest aiming to have about 10 times your annual income saved by age 67.
Hmm.
So it's not a perfect formula, but it gives you a good starting point for building, let's say, your strategy.
Yeah. And that makes sense. But what if somebody's listening thinking, uh oh, I'm nowhere near that number? What can they do?
Well, that's a really common concern. And here's the good news, it's never too late to make progress. So
Yeah.
if you find yourself, let's say, short of your retirement goal, start by reassessing your spending and your saving habits. Maximizing contributions to tax advantage accounts like 401ks and IRAs may be powerful tools. And if you're already retired or let's say close to it, consider some lifestyle adjustments, downsizing, let's say, moving to, let's say, a lower cost area, or maybe working part time for a few more years to boost your income and stretch your savings.
Okay. So it's about staying proactive then and finding ways to adapt instead of giving up on the goal.
Yes, exactly. And I'm gonna think of it as a wake up call, not a dead end. So if you're in your mid 50s or let's say your early 60s, and those are often your highest earning years, the kids might be grown and the mortgage might be smaller, which means this can be your window to really catch up. Tighten up your belt a little now. Make a huge difference later. It's much better to, let's say, make adjustments in your 50s than be forced to do it in your 80s when options are limited.
Yeah. And that's such solid advice. Honestly, pretty empowering as well. I mean, no matter where you are, you can still take control of your future then.
That's exactly the message, Tony. Start where you are, build a strategy, and then keep moving forward. Small, consistent steps and improvements take you a long way towards the retirement you want. And this is why my company is called Kaizen, which means small, continual change for the better. Follow that concept, folks.
I like that, Kaizen. Well, this has been another great show today, Albert. Anything else before we let our listeners go?
Yes, folks, look, if you have questions about your retirement, your financial strategy, please visit my website, www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. Or call my office at 586-752-7008 to schedule a meeting with me. We'd love to help you protect your savings and feel confident about the road ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Albert, and thank you, listeners and viewers. That does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care, everybody.